welcome back to Litigation Help. My name is Heather Hui-Litwin. In this video, we're going to talk about how to hire a lawyer for a lawsuit in a more affordable way. So usually when you're hiring a lawyer for a lawsuit, that lawyer becomes your representative. And they are what's called lawyer on record. And what this means is that they're responsible for all the aspects of your case, like drafting legal documents, filing documents for you at the courthouse, speaking on your behalf, arguing on your behalf at court hearings, and so on. And usually how a lawyer bills is that they bill for the amount of time spent on your file. And this would include the things I just mentioned, and it also includes things like travel time, waiting time at the courtroom, time spent talking to you about your case, things like that. So a lot of clients have found this type of legal service quite expensive, and a lot of litigants have they start off with hiring lawyers, but then after a while, because it gets so expensive, that they end up dropping them and they represent themselves. So, but the problems, of course, when you're representing yourself, the legal system is actually quite complicated, and it's very challenging for people who are representing themselves to navigate the court system properly. Lawyers are realizing this, and so more and more lawyers are now offering a more affordable way to offer legal services. And there are actually several names for this. One is called limited scope retainer services. Another name is limited scope legal services. And a third name is called unbundled service. So joining me here today is a very special guest. Her name is Helena Burt, and she's a family lawyer in Ontario. So just a quick bio here. Helena was called to the bar in 1985. She was in private practice for 14 years. She joined Legal Aid Ontario in 1999 to manage the Family Duty Counsel program. She then moved to the Ministry of Attorney General, where she was the Deputy Legal Director of the Family Responsibility Office from 2010 to 2015. And then after that, she returned to private practice in 2017, and she's now the Senior Program Director of the Family Law Limited Scope Services Project. Welcome, Helena.
Thank you, Heather.
Okay.
Nice to be here.
Okay, great, fantastic. So Helena, could you give us a little bit of a background, the basics about what is limited scope services?
Okay, limited scope services or unbundled services are an alternative mode of practice to the traditional method of hiring a lawyer to act for you through your whole entire case. If you're on a limited scope or you hire a lawyer on a limited scope retainer, it means instead of hiring a lawyer to act for you until your case or matter is finished, you're hiring a lawyer to do one or more specific tasks or things. You and the lawyer define what the task is, how much time the lawyer is going to be spending on that task, and what the cost of that task is going to be. As the client, you retain management and control of your case overall, and you're also responsible for all other steps and tasks that are not covered by your agreement with the lawyer. Some help from an experienced qualified lawyer is better than no help at all, and that's what limited scope retainers provide. You control your costs, and research indicates the cost of retaining a lawyer is quite often the biggest reason why people are self-represented. One of the basic things that a lot of lawyers will do when they provide limited scope services is they will provide research or an opinion on a specific legal issue. They can draft a document for you or a letter that has to go to the opposing side. It can actually include attending mediation with you to assist you at a mediation if one has been scheduled. Or you can even hire a lawyer to go to court for you on one specific appearance, like to argue a motion or to attend at a case conference if you're a little scared about going in and doing it on your own, or you think you could use some help.
No, that sounds really
but
good.
Again, as I said, the thing about it is that it just means that you stay in control, though. Like the lawyer just does the work that you are hiring the lawyer to do after that one court appearance is over. If that's all you hired that lawyer to do for you, then you're back managing your own case and you have no other obligation to that lawyer, and that lawyer has no further obligation to you.
Right, so that hence the term limited scope. Now, do you have any tips for us as to how one might go about choosing a limited scope lawyer?
Yeah, first of all, you have to find one.
Right,
that's always
right.
The interesting part.
Yes.
Okay, the project that I'm currently managing is the Family Law Limited Scope Services Project, and we'll talk more about the project later.
Yep.
The project has an online directory of experienced family law lawyers who have taken training in providing limited scope services. But there are also other channels that exist to find limited scope services in Ontario. One of them is the www.mysupportcalculator.ca from DivorceMate, which is available online as a free service. Steps to Justice, if you Google it, has got a really great article called Getting Help in Family Law that can lead you to all kinds of resources, which includes a roster. They have a direct link to our project site, and they also have a link to the smaller roster that's available from the National Self-Represented Litigants Project. The Law Society of Ontario actually has a site called Finding a Lawyer or a Paralegal, and that webpage does include a search feature for unbundled services. But unfortunately, there aren't that many lawyers who have chosen to include this information on their listings with the Law Society. Again, then a basic Google search will now also generate a multitude of family law lawyers who provide unbundled or limited scope services. So if you just look it up, you'll be able to find them. But as with any other retainer, probably the best and most frequent way that people find a limited scope retainer lawyer is through a recommendation by friends or family.
Thanks, Helena. That's great. I should add as well that the Self-Rep Navigators also has a list of lawyers who offer limited scope retainers.
And again, keep in mind that even if a lawyer doesn't specifically advertise doing unbundled services, many will do this type of work if asked to do so. The key is that you have to talk to a lawyer who sounds like the one before committing to a relationship. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Be prepared with information about your own case, your family, and the background of your case, so you can give the lawyer the information he or she needs to assist in your matter, to assess it and what needs to be done, and then you can talk about your request for service. Now, again, though, there are certainly, are situations where limited scope retainers are maybe not the best way to do it. So, and that's always one thing that I know people are very concerned about. So definitely that limited scope services are not available for in every potential case or for any potential client because they're just simply not recommended in certain circumstances. For example, if domestic violence is a factor in the case, either historical or ongoing, the traditional retainer is likely more appropriate because of the imbalance of power issues and all the other emotional consequences that flow from those kind of things. It can be very, very difficult for a lawyer to deal with on a limited scope retainer. If your legal issues are complex and intertwined, for example, if you have a family business that needs to be evaluated, if there are family assets in a foreign country, or if there are immigration issues. Also, even if your issues are relatively simple, you have to be the right client with the right mindset. The kind of things that a lawyer offers or will look for before offering a limited scope retainer is an assessment of you as a potential client. Do you have reasonable expectations about what a successful outcome would look like in your case? Are you willing to compromise in order to reach an appropriate outcome? Can you let go of tasks, or are you a micromanager? That's quite often a very big factor. Do you have any cognitive or literacy issues or any significant addiction or mental health issues that could interfere with your ability to have a good relationship with the lawyer? Can you accept the advice of the lawyer you've chosen when it's based on a solid understanding of your case, the facts, and your issues? Because you may not necessarily agree with the advice that the lawyer is providing to you. So those are all things that both you and your lawyer will have to consider and talk about before you launch onto a limited scope retainer.
Oh, wow, that's really good to know. And now another question I have is, or people have asked me is, can you ask your limited scope lawyer to be your full retainer lawyer?
You certainly can. The thing about the limited scope retainer is you're just hiring a lawyer to do that one specific piece of work. And that can happen right at the very early days or the beginning of your case, or it could happen at any step in the proceedings. If you and your lawyer get along and you develop a relationship that you trust each other and you figure you do want to continue working together on a go forward basis, yes, there's nothing wrong with hiring a lawyer that you've hired on a limited scope retainer to continue to act for you, either on multiple limited scope retainers that carry on into the future for specific tasks, or you can actually switch over into the traditional retainer model where the lawyer becomes your counsel of record. But if you do that, it means you have to enter into a new comprehensive retainer agreement. It's not unusual for this to happen after you've developed that level of trust with each other. The big driving factor always for the traditional model, however, is the financial means of the client. Because once you switch from a limited scope retainer you enter into the traditional model, then the client will be looking at having to come up with probably a substantial retainer to carry out the balance of the work that needs to be done on the file if you're handing it over to your lawyer to then become your counsel of record.
Right, right. Do you have any suggestions as to what stage in a lawsuit is best to hire a limited scope lawyer versus a full retainer lawyer? Because I know some people, like a lot of people actually are very scared of trials because a trial is like, the thing, right? So would you say would you say that a person maybe they like during the pre-trial stages, they could do this limited scope way, but then by the time trial comes, they should probably look at a full retainer? Maybe I'm wrong, but
No, it's definitely something to look at. With a limited scope retainer, you could hire a lawyer to do something for you at any stage in the proceedings.
right.
If you really don't feel that you're in a financial situation to be able to afford a lawyer on the traditional retainer model right from the beginning, I think it is a very, very good idea to at least get in touch with a lawyer to get some initial advice about your case. So you've got an idea of where you should be going, to get
Right.
an idea of what needs to be done, and to let you actually take a look at it yourself and say, okay, do I think I can do this myself, or do I actually need a lawyer's help to start my initial documentation?
Right.
There are a lot of people that do start proceedings on their own and then find out once they get to court, it's a little bit overwhelming. They don't know how to handle it. And
Right.
then they will maybe hire a lawyer to assist them with drafting some documentation, maybe argue a motion for them. And then once they understand the process and what needs to be done,
Right.
then they can still carry on and do it themselves. The one thing that most lawyers that do limited scope retainers will not do is jump in and accept a limited scope retainer to do a trial.
Wow.
Generally, what we try to do for limited scope services is it's the right service when you really feel you need it the most, and you can always come back and get more service, again, subject to your financial ability to pay for that service. But you take it and you work on it as you go along. And again, the more prepared you can be when you talk to the lawyer for whatever it is you want the lawyer to do for you, the better off you're going to be.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And actually, an option would be if you cannot afford a lawyer at trial for a lawyer on record for the trial, you could always go to legal coaching, which I kind of want to bring us to, because this idea of legal coaching is quite new, isn't it? So I was wondering if you could go into that a little bit of detail for us here.
Okay, legal coaching is kind of like a variation on limited scope services, but it's even having the lawyer take a step further back than what we've been talking about. Because with the limited scope services we're talking about, you're still handing over a piece of your case to a lawyer to handle for a fixed price. Okay, so the lawyer is going to do something for you. There's going to be a task or a service or like a thing that the lawyer is going to do for you, and that's what you're paying for. When you hire a lawyer for legal coaching, it's a little bit of a different relationship, because in legal coaching, the lawyer always stays in the background. The lawyer is not doing any of your document preparation. Your lawyer is not going to court with you or attending things with you. Your lawyer is there literally as your coach. You're doing it, you're the star, you're the one that's shooting your basketball and doing everything else, when what your lawyer is then doing is staying in the background and coaching you, giving advice and information on how to proceed with your case, but letting you do all the tasks yourself rather than taking on part of those tasks and doing it themselves. It is a fairly new model of practicing, but there are lawyers out there that are starting to offer legal coaching, and they really, really enjoy it, and clients are finding it very, very worthwhile. It takes some special training for lawyers in order to be good legal coaches, but there are more of them that are starting to be out there, and they will advertise it. They do if you think it's an option for you.